China is the world's largest producer of gold. You can see in this data from Statista that last year, in 2021, China produced 370 metric tons of the yellow metal. But the thing about China is, not only are they producing more gold than any other nation on earth, they're keeping all of that domestic production, and on top of it, they are net importers of gold. So they're buying more gold from abroad as well. Now, these are the official gold reserve numbers as reported by central banks and nations around the world. And officially, you can see China is down here in the number 6 position on this chart with 1,948 tons of gold. That number seems a little suspect to me, especially in light of the fact that since the year 2000, China is estimated to have produced more than 6,000 tons of gold. So, where's all this gold going? We know they're not exporting it, so very likely those additional thousands of tons of gold are being held by the Chinese in reserve, but they simply haven't been officially reported, and it's very likely that they are waiting to report their official gold reserves at a time of their choosing. Now, when you look at these numbers, with the United States in the number 1 position with 8,133 tons, when you consider how much gold China has produced and is importing from around the world, it's a very real possibility that Chinese gold reserves may actually be the largest in the world. Maybe not on a per capita basis, but in absolute terms. They may actually have more gold than the US already. But we will not find out until China chooses to reveal that. Now, as far as Chinese imports from around the world, that is a trend that we have been seeing accelerate in recent months. In August, Kitco reported that Chinese Swiss gold imports had soared nearly 150% in July. And this was as the price of gold was falling. So one thing we can observe here from China is that as the price of gold comes down, they have been buying more. And I think there's something we can learn here as stackers from China that, pullbacks in the price of precious metals, they're opportunities to accumulate more. China is certainly playing the long game here. When they see a dip in the price of bullion, they want to add to their reserves. And of course, none of this is financial advice, but I think that that's probably a wise strategy. And of course, since July, gold prices have fallen even further, but the trend has continued. We've seen as the price of gold has continued to pull back, China has accumulated more. This is a report from Reuters just a few days ago about how Swiss gold exports to China continue to rise. And this article includes some data from Swiss Customs that we can take a look at. You can see here that in September of 2021, the Chinese imported 21,700 kilograms of gold from the Swiss. In August of 2022, so just a few months ago, that number was as high as almost 38,000 kilograms. And then in September, the number had increased to more than 44,000 kilograms. So that's a more than 100% increase year over year from 2021. So the Chinese are absolutely accelerating their program of gold acquisition. But it's not just from the Swiss. The Chinese have also been buying a tremendous amount of gold from Russia. This is another report from Kitco from the end of August about how in July, Chinese imports of gold from Russia surged 750% in July, and that's a month-over-month increase. Year over year, that represented an increase of more than 4,800%. So as the LBMA and Western institutions have tried to sanction Russia and ban the import of Russian gold, China has been more than happy to snap up that Russian gold, that excess supply, probably at a discount too. They're probably benefiting from this disproportionately because the Russians are being forced to sell to alternative buyers. Their pool of potential buyers has decreased, and so probably China's getting a pretty sweet deal on that Russian gold. This is a report from September from Bloomberg about how the premiums on gold in Shanghai have risen, and they are higher than in London and in the West. And what this means is that the price of gold, physical gold, is just higher in China, or at least it was in September, than in the West. And that creates an arbitrage opportunity where traders will buy gold in the West, ship it to China, sell it, and they'll profit. And this creates a flow of gold from west to east. And, this is something we should all be paying attention to because, the old saying, the golden rule, he who has the gold makes the rules. Well, if China is accumulating gold and it's being drained out of Western vaults, those of us living in the West, maybe we should be concerned about this. Now, why is there all this demand in China for gold? Well, one thing that we're seeing is that the Chinese currency, the Yuan, has fallen precipitously since the Federal Reserve embarked on its program of rate hikes. This is a chart of the yuan versus the US dollar, and you can see that in April, the yuan began a slide, which has continued until this day. And so likely some citizens in China are trying to protect their purchasing power. They understand that the yuan is on a downward trajectory. Now, China, they're going to try to intervene in markets and fix that. Recently, President Xi, he told banks to load up and prepare to sell dollars to try to defend the yuan. And, we'll see how that plays out. But the point is here that this situation, this falling yuan and the rising US dollar, is going to create some demand domestically in China for gold. But we can take a look at these inflation numbers from tradingeconomics.com, and you can see that the Chinese inflation rate at 2.8%, not particularly high. I mean, compared to many places in the world, this is not a significant problem, but we may see this number increase in the future. We're coming to a time here where food prices are rising drastically. We're seeing that effect here in the West, in the US and in Europe and in many places around the world. And likely this is going to begin hitting home in China fairly soon. And so we may see Chinese inflation tick up from here. But still, this doesn't seem like enough of a motivation for the Chinese citizens to be accumulating gold, to me, to account for that rising gold premium that we are seeing in Chinese markets. So, why are they accumulating all this gold? Well, some of it is probably demand from the government, and it's part of their ongoing efforts of de-dollarization. China and Russia for decades have been preparing for the end of the dollar as the reserve currency. They've been actively trying to undermine it, and accumulating gold as an alternative hard asset with no counterparty risk, that is a good move if you are trying to undermine the dollar as the world reserve currency, and specifically if you're trying to prepare yourself for a time after which the dollar has lost its world reserve status. I mean, certainly that may plunge world markets into some chaos, a transition away from the dollar as a world reserve currency. And, that might not happen for years. It might not happen for decades. But the Chinese, they're playing the long game, and they are accumulating gold now. But this could happen a lot sooner than many people expect. This is some news that we got just a few days ago. Admiral Michael Gilday, he's the chief of U.S. naval operations, and he has recently warned that a Chinese invasion of Taiwan may be coming a lot sooner than previously expected. So, in 2021, Admiral Phil Davidson had set a time frame of a Chinese invasion by 2027. There's been quite a bit of talk about this year, 2027, how that's the time frame where we have to be prepared for an invasion of Taiwan by China. But Michael Gilday now is pushing back against that and saying we may see an invasion as early as 2022 or 2023. And the domestic situation in China, to me, seems to kind of be lending itself to this analysis. The Chinese Communist Party just had their Party Congress, an event which occurs twice every decade. During this Congress, President Xi gave a speech where he outlined his case for China to resume its position as the forefront global power, culturally, economically, financially, militarily, just about in every regard. That seems to be Xi's ambition. And a big part of this speech focused on reunification with Taiwan. And, it was met with resounding applause. Seems to be a very popular idea among the Congress. Xi seems to be consolidating power in anticipation of some kind of a big move.
Hey everybody, Smart Silver Stacker here. I'm noticing as I go back and edit this video that I have repeatedly mispronounced the Chinese president's name as Xi. The correct pronunciation is Xi. I don't really have time to re-record the video though, so I'm just going to apologize and insert this disclaimer here.
This is just something that was reported yesterday. Jintao, that is Xi's predecessor, the previous head of the Chinese Communist Party from 2002 to 2012, he was forcibly removed from the Congress. And so there's a lot of speculation about what is going on. I mean, there's not a lot of transparency, of course, with the political situation in the Chinese Communist Party, but a way as to, discredit Hu. And it's like possibly a political purge. It's possibly Xi eliminating anybody who might oppose him in a period of turmoil. And this is the sort of thing that you might see before a war or a major conflict kicks off. Before you invade Taiwan, if you're Xi, you want to make sure that you have tied up all the loose ends, so to speak. And, there's a lot of speculation about what actually happened here. Some people have said maybe it was a positive COVID test, maybe it's some kind of a health reason. But it is important to note that, as far as the optics of this go, these aides lifted up and escorted Hugh immediately after reporters were allowed into the Congress. So it seems like it was timed to possibly send some sort of a message. And so it certainly seems like Xi is consolidating power. He is getting ready for something. And an important development at this Chinese Communist Party Congress is that Xi was given a third term. And Vladimir Putin was quick to congratulate Xi on this unprecedented third term for a leader of the Chinese Communist Party. I mean, basically, it seems like Xi has now claimed presidency for life. He is likely to be in charge in China for some time. Putin here also said that he looks forward to further developing a comprehensive partnership between the two countries. So, China and Russia, they're military allies. 2023 is starting to shape up to be a year when we are likely to see a significant escalation in this conflict in Ukraine that Russia is currently engaged in. And very likely, it may be the year that we see Taiwan and China finally come to blows. And, that is going to be a very dangerous situation for world markets. That is going to be a very dangerous situation for the U.S. economy. We depend on China tremendously for manufacturing capacity. We're already in the early stages of this conflict. We had the ban on U.S. chip technology going to China, to try to stymie Chinese technological progress. They recently removed all of the U.S. employees from these tech companies in China. This is very likely to come to blows sometime soon. We know that China and Taiwan has been a major hotspot for years, and it's looking like it's about to pop off there, folks. And so, stacking gold, probably a wise decision in light of the disruptions that are going to be coming to the global economy in the very near future. We're moving through this fourth turning event. If you've read The Fourth Turning by Strauss and Howe, they predict that this fourth turning, which kicked off in 2020, they really nailed that year. It's going to wrap up sometime in 2026. And so between now and then, who knows what's going to happen? But when we emerge from the other side of these events of great change, these crazy times, it's very likely that currencies around the world, their roles will have changed dramatically. But one thing that we can count on is that gold is almost certain to hold its value through whatever political turmoil or geopolitical conflict comes our way. It's been holding its value for thousands of years. And so I think that we could all take a page out of China's playbook here. However you feel about China, Xi Jinping, the Communist Party over in China, one thing that they're doing right is that they are acquiring hard, tangible assets. And I think that we should all be following suit. Of course, it's not financial advice, but taking advantage of these pullbacks in the price of gold and also of silver, something I think we should all be doing at this point. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you all very much for watching. Stay safe and happy stacking, everybody. I'll catch you next time. Smart Silver Stacker, out.